Without further ado, we talked about $12 million and phased in, and this is again the table from earlier in the presentation, if it is to how it would be phased in. So the tax impact that I'm going to show takes into account this table. So a little bit about Proposition 2.5 and how this phased-in approach works. Prop 2.5 allows us to raise the levy limit by 2.5% each year, plus what's called new growth, which is when you pull a permit and you knock down a house and rebuild. And then every once in a while we can have an override to raise the levy limit. However, we don't have to tax all the way to the levy limit. And that's what this is showing as far as phasing in. So for example, next year we would have the levy limit would be raised by $12 million, but the actual levy would be the what we showed over $6.5 million. So part for operating and then the capital. And then it would go up every year. The levy would go up every year after that, with the levy limit going up to 2.5% plus new growth. Now, it gets a little bit more complicated when you start taking into debt exclusions, because as we pay those off, those come off the levy limit. So this is simplified to just the operating piece, not counting the debt exclusions or the Chapter 110, because that doesn't change basically overnight. That's already, those debt exclusions are already approved. So how much will it cost? Here it is. So per $100,000 evaluation, the impact of the override in the first year would be $85. Now, there is the 2.5 and the exclusions, that's an additional $15. So there's the table. For $1 million property, it's $850 the first year. Then the next 2 years, we add on the rest, the total is $1,570 for $1 million. And it's linear. We have a flat property tax, so just multiply the value of the property, divide by 100,000 or multiply by something, whatever makes the table. So what does that do to our tax rate? So this is FY18, that's when we were able to pull the data for all the other towns. It excludes Chapter 110, which we are the only town that puts part of your water and sewer rate onto the property tax. So the only way to compare with other towns is to exclude the Chapter 110, because like you go to Lexington, the water and sewer rates are 3 to 4 times what ours are, because they don't have Chapter 110. So for looking at it right now, or in FY18, the tax rate is $11.50 per $1,000 of value in Winchester. And you can see the other towns there. With a $12 million override passing, this is not what it would be in FY20 in the first year of the phase-in. This is after the whole $12 million gets put into the tax rate. We would still be below the middle of the pack as far as tax rate. So as far as when somebody's looking at, you know, $1 million house in Winchester versus $1 million house in Lincoln, the one in Lincoln would still pay more in taxes, or Lexington or Andover or Concord or any of those other comparable communities. As far as the other number that usually gets looked, which is the average single family home, and this is the so this is the same comparison. Right now we're about a little bit over the middle, and we would get past Belmont and Wayland. And again, this is when adding the full $12 million, and this is not the first year. Again, our average property value is much higher than most other towns, so that's why the tax rate is lower. So, you know, one thing that we hear about is folks that are on a fixed income that have been living in town for a long time. And the last thing that we want to do is to have these impacts make somebody have to make the decision to sell their home. And we certainly don't have properties in Winchester where people can downsize to. Most of the condos being built are $1.5 million. You know, there's an issue for people who are on Social Security or fixed income and having these increases. So The first 4 lines here are existing property tax relief, and this applies to seniors. So property tax exemption up to $1,000, the work program, which is a tax credit of $1,250, and this is for work at the library or schools or town hall. Also, for those who get, I guess everybody gets the tax bill even if it's escrowed, but there's a little insert there to make a voluntary contribution to a senior fund, so that also applies. And then there's a property tax deferral program, where up to all of the property tax of qualifying seniors can be deferred, and then that gets paid back when the house is sold. So those are the programs we have in place today. We also, Senator Lewis and Representative Day have been working on, other towns have already implemented the 5th bullet here, and that's the circuit breaker property tax exemption. So there's, seniors can get a circuit breaker tax credit on their state income tax, and so a lot of other towns are matching that. When somebody gets that, matching it on the property tax. So we are going to work to bring to Springtown meeting an article to implement that as well. To essentially, other towns have been doing it, it's working well for them. We might fiddle with it a little bit to increase the amount of property value that that qualifies, because right now a person doesn't qualify if their property value is above $778,000, I believe the number is. And for Winchester, that's well below our average. So we're working to see what we can do, but we will bring something to town meeting to either expand, to bring something there, and maybe as well to expand some of the other ones that are existing. Then the next steps, and this is what we talked about. So see, that was pretty short. I don't want to spend too much time talking about that. So the next steps are the override question. If the select board votes to put an override question on the ballot, it would be on March 26th at the same time as the rest of the town election. And then the town manager will submit 2 budgets to FinCom on Friday, I believe. One budget would be in case an override doesn't pass. The other budget would be in case an override does pass. You already saw most of what will be on those budgets, but by spring town meeting, we will only get to vote on one because it will be after the election. So in May, we will get to vote on whichever one of these budgets we end up at.
Thank you very much. Well done, Mr. Goluboff. We'll now hear